Hello bookworms! Today I'm going to be doing a spring TBR/TBW video, so I'm going to start doing something a little bit different with TBRs. Instead of doing monthly TBRs, I'm going to do seasonal TBRs, and then after I talk about the books that I'm planning on reading, I'm also going to talk about the shows that I'm planning on watching and the games that I'm planning on playing, though I don't think I have any games to talk about in this video. At the time of filming this video, I'm already almost halfway at making my 100 book reading goal for the year, which is like absolutely wild. But for some reason, every single January, February, I tend to read a lot of thrillers, romance, historical, that's probably my least read genre. But I tend to read a ton of those because I go into the new year oh, I want to catch up on all of these things and read all of these things. And then after a little while, I realize that all of these books are fun in the moment, but I never find any new favorites. They're just kind of okay. Then inevitably, I always have a revelation that my favorite books are always adult fantasy. It's just the way that it is for me. So this year's revelation was brought to me by Oathbringer from Brandon Sanderson, which I finally finished and I'm so glad about, and I'm also reading Rhythm of War right now. Pretty much all of the books that you're going to see on this TBR are fantasy, and that's because I would like to read more of the things that I know will end up being favorites for me. And also, can someone remind me about this next year so that I don't do this to myself? So for spring, the two focuses that I have are the biggest, longest books that have been sitting on my TBR in the fantasy genre, and also all of the books that I've kind of fallen behind on in subscriptions, so all of my Fairy Loot and Illumicrate that I just haven't gotten around to reading yet. Alexa and I have been doing a buddy read on Fairy Loot books of the month, and I've actually made a good amount of progress in this last month, so I feel confident that I can catch up on all of these within the next couple of months. I have also realized that my memory is nowhere near as good as it used to be, so the idea of reading a completed series is much more appealing to me than starting a new series where I'm going to have to be waiting between books and likely forget everything that happened in the first book, and then we'll either have to reread it or just hoping that I know what's going on. That just never works out. So a lot of the books that I'm also going to talk about are books that are backlist, the series are complete, or there are a lot of books out and then I won't be waiting. So the first thing on my TBR I'm actually going to ask for your help on, because I'm trying to decide whether I want to read the Live Ship Trader series or the Tawny Man trilogy by Robin Hobb. I finished reading the Farseer trilogy last year and it ended up being one of my favorite series that I've ever read, and Robin Hobb is by far one of my favorite authors ever. And the funny thing is that I felt kind of lackluster about Fitz the whole time that I was reading it. Huge fan of The Fool though. But by the end of the series, I really enjoyed his story arc and everything that happened. So I kind of want more of Fitz and The Fool. And that's why I was debating if I should start the Tawny Man trilogy, but I don't want to do that if it is important to read Live Ship Traders first, because I know that they all take place in the realm of the Elderlings, and I definitely don't want to miss out on things. I'm definitely reading Live Ship Traders at some point, but I just don't know if I should absolutely read it first. So help. So Live Ship Traders takes place in the realm of the Elderlings, but it's set on the sea. There are pirates, sentient ships, magic, sea serpents, and slave revolts. There are dashing heroes, there are bloody battles, and it takes place on the Rainwild River, which also makes me think that this series is connected to the Rainwild Chronicles. Then we have the Tawny Man trilogy, and this one returns to the world of the Farseers in the Six Duchies. I never know how to say that word. It revisits the characters who managed to survive from the first trilogy, and it takes place 15 years later. I don't want to go further than that into the synopsis of Tawny Man because I don't want to ruin anything for anyone who hasn't read the Farseer trilogy yet, but the premise of this one is really calling to me. Next on my list is a series that's been on my TBR probably since I started BookTube, and that is the First Law series by Joe Abercrombie. So I've been wanting to read these for a really long time. It is probably one of the most well-known grimdark series, and it's so highly acclaimed, and the world is extremely expansive. There's this first trilogy, then I believe there's a series of standalone novels, and then there's a second trilogy all set within the First Law world. So I want to make my way through the first 3 books. And one thing that I've found really funny is that despite hearing everyone talk about First Law all the time, and despite reading the Goodreads synopsis like 100 times, I could not tell you what this is about. I could tell you about the characters in it, but I have no idea what the plot is. And honestly, that bodes pretty well for me because I'm a character-driven reader and I don't really need much plot to enjoy a story. All I know is that everyone loves Glokta, so I'm excited to find out why. And yeah, want to read all 3 of these. Then, as I mentioned at the beginning, I finished reading Oathbringer and I'm in the middle of Rhythm of War right now. So once I finish that, I also want to work on just a general catch-up of the Cosmere universe by Brandon Sanderson. So the 3 novels that I really want to focus on are Tress of the Emerald Sea. This was secret project number 1 of Brandon's Kickstarter, where he did his surprise year of 4 novels that he wrote without telling anyone. I backed that Kickstarter in a heartbeat, and I'm so glad because I feel so blessed to own this absolutely stunning edition of Tress of the Emerald Sea. This book takes place within the Cosmere, but it is inspired by The Princess Bride. I believe Brandon said that he was watching it with his wife, and it made him think about how he wanted kind of like a similar fairy tale-esque story, but one where the princess had a bit more agency and took a bit more action. So that sounds like 100% up my alley. I also really want to read Warbreaker. This is one that I really should have already read, especially now that I am almost caught up on Stormlight Archive. I was a little bit spoiled on one of the connections between this book and something that happens in Stormlight Archive, and I'm fine with that, but now I'm like, oh my god, I really need to read Warbreaker and then kind of reread those parts in Stormlight Archive. I'm pretty excited about this one because a lot of people say that this is one of their favorites of Brandon's work so far. I've loved everything of his that I've read, so I have no doubt that I'm also going to enjoy this one. It's the story of 2 sisters who are princesses and 3 gods, one of which has to marry one of the sisters, and another's trying to undo all of the mistakes that he made hundreds of years ago. I know that the magic system in here also deals with color, but I really don't know too much more past that. And lastly, I want to read Elantris, which I've heard is Brandon's most religious novel. I know it's also his debut novel, so it's not one of the ones that seems to be as highly ranked within his works, but I do want to read everything in the Cosmere, so I do want to give this one a try. It takes place in a once magical but now abandoned city, and Brandon Sanderson also said at the time of filming his last update, he said he was 33% done with writing Stormlight Archive 5, and he's been quoted as saying that once he finishes Stormlight 5, that's likely when he'll start working on Warbreaker and Elantris sequels. So I do really want to have these read so that I can read those when everyone else is reading them and excited about them. Next on my list is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. So I'm the absolute latest person to the game, but I finally read The Martian in December of 2022, and it ended up being one of my favorite books of the year. I absolutely loved it, and then I finally watched the movie, and the book was so much better as expected. But ever since then, I've been dying to read more Andy Weir, and everyone raves about his newest, which came out last year. This one is another space mission, but we're following a character named Ryland Grace, and he wakes up in the middle of space with no idea why he's there, how he got there, what he's supposed to be doing, and both of the crewmates on his ship are dead. And I've been told to not really find out anything else about it before I go into it, so that's all that I know, and I'm really excited to see what this mission is all about. Then lastly, I have Full Metal Alchemist, and I've been trying to focus on one graphic novel or manga series a month, like to try to kind of catch up on them and read them in between the longer books that I'm reading, just to like break things up and also read some things physically because I've been mostly reading on Kindle this year, so it's nice to like read an actual book. Last month I caught up on all of the Critical Role graphic novels, and this season I am focusing on catching up on all of Full Metal Alchemist. So I'm up to volume 4. It follows 2 brothers who are alchemists and their adventures while they're trying to obtain a certain goal, which I won't spoil because it's fun to kind of find out things as you're reading. I feel like so far the reveals have been done so well, and I just get so much joy in reading this, and there are things that make me laugh out loud, and then other things where I'm like, wow, that was unexpectedly like the most heartfelt thing ever, and my heart hurts. So yeah, very excited to honestly hopefully finish this one up because I'm reading it pretty quickly. Then moving on to my watch list. So Andrew and I are up to season 3 of Star Trek Discovery, so we want to watch season 3 and season 4 this season, be caught up, and then we'll watch season 5 when that debuts next year, and that's going to be the last season of the show. It feels like we're in the home stretch, and once we finish watching Discovery, I actually want to film a video with Andrew just about Star Trek because we've spent years catching up on everything within the Star Trek universe, and I think it would be fun, like a fun conversation just to talk about everything because there's like so much to unpack. But as far as Discovery goes, it is not one of my favorite shows, though season 2 was very fun, but I have a feeling that I'm not gonna like season 3 and season 4 as much because of the characters that have departed, but I'm going to try to be optimistic. Next on my list is The Last of Us season 1. Now that the full season is out, I really want to watch and kind of like binge watch the series over maybe like a week or 2. I've never played the game, but I'm pretty familiar with the story, mostly from watching girlfriend reviews videos on YouTube, and also because some of the cast of Critical Role did voices within the game. Andrew and I are both worried about this one being pretty sad, but we want to give it a shot just because people are like raving about it. And then movie-wise, I am really excited to see the Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves movie. I really didn't think that I was going to care for it when I first heard about it, but then I saw the trailer that they released I think it was last summer, and it actually looked like really good. So I've kind of been excited for it ever since. I'm also really excited to see a live action druid because I play a druid in our ongoing D&D campaign, and I also just love everything that has to do with bards, so I'm excited to see a bard. And yeah, I hope it's gonna be a lot of fun. And then we're obviously also going to see the Super Mario Brothers movie. I'm also now just realizing how many video game adaptations I have on this list. Neither of us are sold on Chris Pratt's Mario accent, but I mean, we're huge Nintendo people, so this has been on our list since it was announced. We also usually wait to see movies until we can watch them at home, but we're definitely making exceptions for both Mario and Dungeons and Dragons, trying to ease back into going to the movies. And same thing goes for the next one on my list, which is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Guardians of the Galaxy is probably one of my favorite franchises within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but I'm still going to be going in cautiously optimistic because I feel like it's been a really long time since Marvel has made a movie where I'm like, oh my god, that is like a favorite movie and everyone has to see it. I feel like we're just kind of oversaturated at this point, which I never thought I would say in a million years, but I feel like if any franchise has the opportunity to make an excellent movie, it's going to be Guardians of the Galaxy. Also Spider-Man. That was the last one that I really loved. So that's everything that I have planned for the season. And you know what? I said I didn't have any games to include on this list, but I will just say that Andrew and I are starting to play Little Nightmares today, so I may as well just sneak that one in here at the end. I don't really know too much about the game. We had been saving it to play around Halloween, and then we just missed Halloween because we had so much going on. We were like, you know what? We're just gonna play now, even though it's March and not really on theme, but I'm excited. So yeah, that is everything that I have planned for the season. Let me know some things that you're planning on reading or watching, and let me know if I should read Mad Ship or Fool's Errand first, and if I will miss out on anything, if I dive right into Tawny Man. That is something I really need to know. But that's all that I have for this video, so I will see you guys soon in a new one. Bye!